the Dean of the Faculty. And I'm very proud to introduce this evening and delighted in particular, and maybe just give you a chance to, yes, late to class. And this is actually in some ways part of the delight was what I was about to say is that we're so thrilled that we're able to have finally an in-person reunion again. So it's been too long and it makes it so much more special. Before we get this evening's programming underway, we wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and live and learn on this land. Now, as I already alluded, Alumni Reunion is one of the highlights of the year, and it is always such a pleasure to welcome our outstanding graduates back to the law school. It's a time for you to reconnect with friends and classmates, to meet new colleagues and reflect on all the things that you've done since you graduated from the law school, and maybe also to reminisce a little bit about your time when you were here. For us at the faculty, it also allows us the opportunity to connect with you, but also really to say thank you for your many contributions to the profession, to public service, to business and beyond. You really make us proud, and to a large extent, the reputation of the law school rests on all the things that you have accomplished over the years, and the many wonderful alumni and current students that are part of our community and that help us be a leader in legal education, not just in Canada, but also at a top 20 law school in the world. I'd also like to express my appreciation in particular for the class ambassadors who supported this event. Thank you so much. As always, you invest a significant amount of time, and that time and your commitment to the reunion events really is a huge help to us as we reach out to as many alumni as possible, and in some cases are able to connect with those among you who we've lost touch with over the years. Now, and this brings me to the topic here this evening in this room. In addition to celebrating your reunion, we also wanted to take this opportunity to celebrate another really important milestone for the law school, because this year, Downtown Legal Services, the faculty's community legal clinic and clinical legal education program, celebrates 50 years of offering free legal assistance to Torontonians in need. The clinical experience at Downtown Legal Services has provided really a significant benefit to thousands by now seeking access to justice in our community. And graduates actually also often cite their time at the clinic as a highlight of their student experience. And actually, I heard just a moment ago, already current students cite this experience as a highlight of their experience at the law school. So you'll hear more about this as we go along, I hope. But to help us mark this important milestone, we've brought together a panel to discuss the impact that Downtown Legal Services has on students and on the community at large. And so I would now like to introduce our panel moderator, Prasanna Balasundaram, our end of the panel over there, who is the director of Downtown Legal Services. Prasanna became the director in 2021, but he is by no means, and many of you may know that, new to DLS. He spent 7 years as a staff lawyer overseeing the clinic's refugee and immigration division, and he is also well known as an excellent litigator with notable successes with law reform and test case litigation, including, among others, in constitutional challenges to the designated country of origin regime and the Safe Third Country Agreement, and a whole range of other interventions. Prasanna is also a very popular clinical educator and supervisor, and he has supported and evaluated and reviewed casework for countless students over the past several years. In 2021, perhaps then, not surprisingly, he received the Cirillo Award from the Association for Canadian Clinical Legal Education, recognizing those who've made significant contributions to the life of their legal clinics. So I am delighted to welcome Prasanna and to turn the proceedings over to him. There you go.
Thank you so much, Dean Brunet, for that. Thank you so much, Dean Brunet, for that generous introduction, and welcome to all of you who are here in person. It's amazing to see everybody here in person as well. Welcome to everybody joining us virtually. As Dean Brunet said, Downtown Legal Services is the University of Toronto Faculty of Law's community legal clinic and home to its public interest advocacy program. Under the supervision of the clinic's 5 incredible lawyers, each year approximately 150 law students provide legal services to about 2,000 low-income City of Toronto residents in housing, family, employment, criminal, refugee, and immigration law. DLS serves individuals and communities at the intersection of multiple barriers and are particularly vulnerable due to the confluence of poverty, race, gender, and disability. We are inspired by the remarkable resilience and courage our clients display daily in the face of grinding injustice. We feel privileged truly to be in their service. The DLS Clinical Legal Education Program focuses on a critical, reflective practice that seeks to consider and examine and challenge underlying social, political, cultural, and economic patterns. This allows law students to develop fresh insights into the social reality of law and legal institutions, to explore ethical issues, and to acquire crucial professional skills. As we mark 50 years of DLS, it seems fitting that we gather to discuss and consider the vital role that DLS plays in the lives of clients as well as law students. Our 2 panelists have some incredible, rich perspectives to share. I have the pleasure of introducing Rossana and Nina. Rossana is the daughter of Luis, a former client of DLS in the area of immigration law. She's originally from Lima, Peru, where she lived until 2009. She has a bachelor's degree in law and political science from the Universidad de Lima in Peru. She's an accredited Spanish interpreter, and as such, she works independently with various interpretation agencies. She considers herself a people person, caring, compassionate, and perceptive. She is very responsible and dedicated. She believes in justice and freedom and in a better world. She's very sociable, enjoys writing and researching. She misses it that in Peru, she had more social activities and an active social life. She is not athletic, but loves the water and swimming. Nina is a JD student in her 2nd year at U of T. Over the summer, she has worked as a caseworker in the employment law division, and now she's splitting her time between the employment and criminal law division as a full-time credit student. Prior to law school, she worked in regulatory affairs in the telecommunications industry. Her and I agree it's a fascinating area. She has a particular interest in employment and human rights law. A few fun facts I learned about Nina today. 1, she's a junior fellow at Massey College. 2, she's a serious Quidditch player, that's for real. And 3, she's excited about celebrating Diwali with her partner and family this month. So welcome, Rossana and Nina. So what I thought I would do is, oh, sorry, this mic, you gotta get real close to this for this to work, apparently. So what I thought I'd do is start out with some questions for you, Rossana, then for you, Nina, and then hopefully we can have a conversation about the impact of DLS. So Rossana, can you tell us a little bit about what specific service you were looking for your father, and how did you come to DLS for assistance?
Sure. Can you hear me? Thank you, Prasanna. Before I answer you, I would like to congratulate you all for the nice faculty you have. First time I'm here. Secondly, your reunion. take it seriously. And of course, your 50-year anniversary, congratulations. And to answer your question, Prasanna, what I was looking for, it was not me who was the client, it was my father. And I was, at that time, we were looking for legal advice and representation to actually update a humanitarian and compassionate application I had filed myself. You heard that I studied law, but of course I never studied immigration law. Not too many people immigrate to school. And yeah, and also it's, I practice very little. I only have a bachelor's degree and it's at home. So at that time, I had been in the country for a while, but I didn't know about legal clinics. So I started doing it myself, and I also consulted 2 or 3 lawyers, but their fees were so high because you are expensive. Madams, you're very expensive. So we couldn't pay for that. My dad was retired and he received a pension from Peru, translated into Canadian dollars, very low. So one day I was with a friend and he told me, he saw me struggling and he asked me, why are you doing this alone? Why don't you go to a legal clinic? And I was like, what? What is a legal clinic? I had been in the country for 4 years and I didn't know. So he took me to a legal clinic at Gerard Street, and they gave me an appointment. They saw the file. I had already filed the application, and the way I thought was fine. But they looked at it and told me, no, it needs to be updated, it needs to be upgraded, but we are too busy. So they recommended Downtown Legal Services, and that's how I got there.
I'm just curious, given the obvious importance of this application for your father, as well as yourself and your family, did you have any apprehensions about trusting something so important to a student legal clinic? What assured you and your father that you'd be served well?
That's a good question. Apprehensions. To tell you the truth, no, I didn't have any apprehensions. Firstly, because I heard the name University of Toronto and I opened my eyes. Oh. And secondly, because this lawyer at the other legal clinic recommended you very well, and they said you could take care of the case. And so I guess I have faith also. So of course, at the beginning, I was waiting for the first impression, right? And right after the first meeting with student, I think it was Jennifer.
That's right, Jennifer Bernardo.
Bernardo, yeah. After the first meeting, I knew we were in good hands.
Just picking up off of that, can you describe or relate to us, what was it like for you and your father to work with the law student caseworkers? Because there was a number of them who assisted you over the course of the lifespan of your father's application.
Yes, there were a number of students, and I have their names here, and if they are here or watching online, my sincere gratefulness, and we were so happy with the service, so happy with their help. Their names were Jennifer Bernardo, Arian Ciaye, David Shu, Christopher Shamas, and Stephanie Owens. And they were all wonderful. So how was it working? I think it was like a teamwork between you. You were a wonderful supervisor.
Thank you for saying that.
Yes, awesome. And the students were very dedicated, were very efficient, but it was teamwork, I say, because they, you instructed them, they instructed us, they told us what documents we had to present, when, They gave us idea of the next steps. They, we all worked together. Whatever they asked me to do, I did it. I mean, get this document from Peru, get this and that, do this, do that. I did it. My dad was already in his mid-70s and he was legally blind. So he couldn't communicate with students. I communicated by email, by phone, by in person. There were meetings, there were a lot of meetings. So it was great. It was great to work with them. And every email had an approval from Prasanna. And you read the email and then below, he was approving. So I knew he was aware of what we were doing.
That's right. If there's anybody here from the Law Society of Ontario, all of the work is closely supervised by our experts.
Oh, you work on that all the time.
No, that's great, Rossana. I was just wondering, in terms of the specific sort of legal skills that the caseworkers brought to bear. I know, you indicated that you had been trained in law, you worked for a little bit in law. What was your sense of how they approached the legal work itself?
The students were awesome. Prasanna was awesome. And I made some notes here with adjectives I would like to use. For example, professional. Professional is not something that you take for granted. It's not just a word, right? Professional is a person who will take seriously their job. And the students, even though they were so young, they looked to me, they conducted themselves, they worked as if they were lawyers already. That was my impression. They were very professional. They were efficient also. They did things fast and well, right? With excellent supervision and not only supervision but guidance of Prasanna. And they were at the university, of course, everything they have learned in the university, they applied there. So they were very efficient at the filing, the way to put together the documents, the deadlines, everything. Then they were very knowledgeable. We asked them questions, they answered them. We, if they didn't know, they didn't mislead us. They were very honest. They said, no, this little thing I don't know, I'm going to ask the staff lawyer, who was Hannah. So they worked very well. Also, they were hard worker and responsible. Sometimes we didn't have meetings that week, but also I knew they were working. We communicated all the time by email. We communicated by telephone. So I knew they were working. So my impression, and I think this is gonna sound funny, my impression was like, they acted like products that had passed the quality assurance in a factory, all of them. And it was very
U of T Faculty of Law products.
yeah. And it was very even. Once they passed the baton to someone else, they picked up impeccably from where the other one had left off and continued, and they knew what had happened before. So it was great. I was totally amazed by the work of the students.
Rossana, can you share with us what was the result in your father's application? What impact did it have on you, on your father, yourself, and your family?
Well, Prasanna, the result couldn't have been better. I don't know exactly how long it took. I think it took less than 2 years because the application was in already, but of course they had to update it, upgrade it. It was like too basic. It needed a lot of work. But finally, they let my dad stay here to apply for his permanent residence, and it was a big relief. We had lived for several years Because before that, they kind of, well, I don't want to blame anybody, but they kind of misled me a little bit that he could file a refugee claim. And because I didn't know anything about refugee, the church and a lawyer who advised the church said, no, a refugee application, but they denied it. So all this time we have been with our hearts in our mouths. God, I'm calling you from the Canada border or something, they're gonna kick you out. So we were both nervous. So in that sense, it was great. He was allowed to stay here as a resident. And in a personal note, for our family, my dad was happier. He could live here, enjoy the country. He could go to senior groups. The other outcome would have been he was sent back to Peru alone, because my sister who lived there with she's married to Canadian national, but they have been living in Peru for many years, and they decided to come back to Canada. And my dad was going to be alone. And I would have had to go back with him. And so I came here as a skilled worker. I didn't want to lose that. And I loved my father more. My father would have gotten very depressed, maybe sick, maybe died. Or maybe I would have left him in a home, and didn't want that. I didn't want to take that decision. So everything was great for the family until, this is the sad part. My dad only lived 7 years after the permanent residence, and he passed away this year at the age of 85. But all these years, he was happy with his family. And I hope he's resting in peace. And looking at me and my sister from above and blessing us, and I know he always thanked me for having done that, for not having left him alone.
Well done. Thank you so much, Rossana, for coming forward and sharing your experiences with all of us. Truly, thank you.
Thank you, Prasanna. In one word, the work of your legal clinic, well, it's not yours, but
It's mine.
it's not yours now. You are the director. But the only word I can think of is excellent. Excellent. I have access to other services and nothing compares. Excellent service.
Thank you, Rossana. And I can say both as a supervising lawyer and as a director now, the reason why we're excellent is because of the law students that come through the clinic like Nina. And so I think this is probably a good time to shift to get a little bit of the student perspective. So Nina, why did you decide to go to law school? You were no doubt having a fascinating career doing telecommunications regulation. Why did you choose to come to U of T Law specifically?
Yes, can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay, great. Thanks, Prasanna. As Prasanna said, I worked for some time after I graduated undergrad in the regulatory affairs industry. So I had a little bit of work experience, and that was something I deliberately chose. I wanted to get a sense of what it was like to have a job before I decided where to go from there. And I worked with a lot of lawyers. I really liked a lot of the work that I was doing. It was a lot of research and writing. It was sort of government affairs related. It was fast paced, which I really enjoyed. And I thought that a lot of those elements might translate into a legal career. But I also felt that I wanted something that I felt a little bit more personally connected to. I wanted to have a job that had a bit more of a mission. And I thought that becoming a lawyer would give me the chance to explore different fields and maybe find something that I felt more connected to. So I came to law school.
I suspect I know the answer to this next question, given that were searching for a little bit of meaning and connection in the work that you do. What is it about DLS that piqued your curiosity and made you want to explore it as an opportunity?
You're not wrong that part of it was, I think the work that DLS does is really valuable. But it's actually two things. It is first that I really wanted a chance to get experience working with marginalized populations, people who don't have access to a lot of legal services, because I thought that might be something that I would find meaningful. And I think that the areas of law that DLS practices in, particularly employment law and human rights law, were of interest to me. But the truth is, it was also pretty selfish because I think there is no better way to get experience in a job than to actually do that job. And DLS is the closest you can get to practicing as a lawyer before you actually become a lawyer. And I just wanted to try it out and see if it was for me. And yeah, it's been pretty good so far.
Awesome. As I said in your introduction, you've kind of had an immersive experience at DLS. You were a summer caseworker this past summer. You're now a full-time intensive student in the academic program, splitting your time between employment and criminal. Can you describe what it's been like to work at?
It's busy every day. And the best part is I have no exams. The other best part is I get to work with clients every day, and I get to work on every element of my client's files from beginning to end. So I do the initial client intake meeting. I do the research into whether or not I think they are a client we can take on in the employment law division and criminal. We don't evaluate for merit. And then I present my game plan for what I think the next steps are to my supervising lawyer. I get their approval. I conduct all my client meetings. I draft pleadings. I'm going to run a hearing in a couple of weeks. I've represented my client at a mediation for the Human Rights Tribunal. I've negotiated settlements. It's a pretty broad spectrum for someone who's just starting second year. And I love every part of it, actually.
Can you speak a little bit more to that relationship that you have with your supervising lawyer? Just because I think it's such a fundamental sort of learning, teaching relationship. Yeah, if you could speak to that.
The clinic system wouldn't work without excellent supervising lawyers. I obviously knew next to nothing when I started as a caseworker in the beginning of the summer, particularly in the employment law division. You don't take labor law until second year, or administrative law. So I came in with zero substantive knowledge and also zero procedural knowledge, which I think most students of law school actually graduate with very little procedural knowledge. So I really relied on my supervising lawyer to point me in the right direction. And not just for the substantive parts of lawyering, but also, but the supervising lawyers I have worked with have a lot of experience and are sensitive to how to work with clients, how to handle difficult interactions, how to break difficult news. And those soft skills are also not something you're born with. And I've come to my supervising lawyer for advice on all of those things. It's also really comforting to know that I'm never going to do anything without their permission. Because I don't know what I'm doing yet, and it's nice to get some really experienced hands on everything I do.
So far this has been a very positive conversation overall. Maybe I can press you a little bit more on some of those difficult moments at the clinic. What would you say the most challenging thing has been in terms of the work that you've been doing?
I think there are two really challenging parts of working in the clinic. The first is having to turn people away. We also, the students man the phones for the intake lines, and we get a lot of calls from people we can't help. That's really tough. I think it's really valuable that every law student gets to see how many people fall through the cracks of the legal system, how little funding there is available for most legal problems, and how many people like Rossana deal with the injustice of not being able to afford a lawyer, many of whom we can't help for capacity reasons or because we have to limit the types of legal problems we can take on. And that's really tough. We do our best to refer them to other places, but it's a valuable lesson and it's a tough one. The second part that I find challenging about working at DLS is that there are a lot of problems I cannot solve because many of the problems that my clients face are simply because they are poor. And those problems cannot all be solved by legal methods. There's also just a limited amount I can do. And that makes every aspect of the work that we do challenging because, for instance, my client doesn't have a computer and can't attend a court date by Zoom, which is now how court dates are set up. Or my client is disabled, and that makes many different aspects of our working relationship difficult. Or in the middle of working with a client in employment, they're also facing potential eviction because they can't afford their rent. There are things we can do, but we can't do everything. And that's tough.
How do you feel the DLS experience has changed?
I think the best thing DLS has done for me is given me a lot of confidence in the work that I think I'm going to do as a lawyer. I was particularly nervous about the concept of negotiating. That felt very intimidating to me, and I've now done it a few times, and I know I can do it again, and that's pretty exciting. I also think I came in as many, I think as many of my peers at U of T do, having lived a pretty privileged life, not having a lot of firsthand experience, what it's like to live with not a lot of money. And I am so lucky that my clients have shared a little bit of their experience with me. I think it's given me more perspective and helped me become a more well-rounded potential advocate and lawyer in the future.
So now I'm hoping we can have a little bit of free-flowing conversation here. Let me just start with this, and I'm inviting obviously the student perspective as well as the client community perspective. Thanks, Rossana. What do you feel, and you've touched on this in your individual comments, what is it about DLS that you feel works? How is it that we're able to provide the service that we do and make the impact that you both have clearly and so passionately spoken? Yeah, what do you think we do well in terms of the services that we provide?
I think you do well everything. I think you serve well. I think you have, or you choose, I don't know what the criteria would be to choose the students, but you choose the right students, you have the right location, you have very good staff lawyers that guide the students and supervise them. I don't know, what else can we ask for?
I have maybe a cheekier answer.
Hello?
I have a bit of a cheekier answer. I think we work well because we rely on cheap student labor. And I don't mean that in a negative way, really. I think that's the way clinics like ours work, is that there are limited funding dollars for legal aid, and students like us can do, according to Rossana, pretty good work under the supervision of really experienced lawyers, and we can make that money go a lot farther. And we serve a lot of clients who otherwise wouldn't be served. And for that reason, I think it's a model that works.
Yeah.
Nice.
Of course, yeah, please.
Nina,
Yes,
I
Rossana.
don't agree too much with you. I don't think it's cheap labor. I just think you need that. I studied law myself, and I went to a very good private university in Peru. And it's a long story why I turned into an interpreter, translator, instructor later. Even though the university was good, I don't remember too much practical experience there. So from those, when you have to deal with a client, you don't, I mean, you have the theory, but you need the practical experience, and that is more like a privilege to have that I did some, like I had apprenticeship, very little because everybody fought to practice here, to practice there. And if you didn't have the right content, it was very hard to practice where I studied, in the city I studied. But if you have days from your university, if you have court rules where you can practice, where you can mock in real life, that is more privilege. And of course I could pay you. But it's great, it's part of learning.
I can't disagree.
They don't pay you to go to class.
It's true, it is a privilege, and I can't quantify you of what I've been able to learn at DLS. On the other hand, and I don't mean to sound ungrateful, I had to choose between a very well-paid job at a law firm and working at DLS where I'm going to make a pretty small wage. And I absolutely would make the same choice every day, but it's a choice. The honest answer is, A, I can afford to make it. And also, I think the value of, like you said, the value of what I can learn at DLS is beyond what I can get elsewhere.
Thanks. Very good.
I'm mindful of the time. I think we're coming to a close. I'm just curious, does anybody have any questions for Nina or Rossana? Anybody in the audience? Yeah, please, sir.
One question. James Egan, class of 1980s. Where did I? Anyway, this young man, class of 67. I'm trying to understand. When I was a student, I did some DLS, like part-time, a little bit. I understand, Nina, that you're a student and you're working, getting class credit or whatever for working with the DLS. That must be a fairly new initiative. I don't think that was around the time. I'm curious to understand how that works. Because if I may, I mean, it's interesting. You're a second-year student. You seem to have already clearly determined which area of law you're going to practice in and focused on that. Certainly for me, I wasn't sure which area of law I was going to practice that in my second year. So it's just curious to see how that works and how that's cool.
I can only speak to how it works now. I don't know when it changed. I have this semester, I'm working full-time at DLS. So we have the opportunity to work at DLS for credit. The option is you can either work part-time for the full year. So you take a few courses in both semesters and then you work part-time, or you can work full-time for a single semester. So I'm 9 to 5 at the clinic instead of doing any classes, and I get a full semester's worth of credits for doing that. Next semester, I'm going to take my black letter law courses, and in third year again, I'll do courses. To answer the second part of your question, I probably in my bio sounded a little bit more determined about the path I'm going to take than I truly am. I would say I'm very open to the possibility that I'll change my mind in a year.
Keep your mind open. That's fine.
It absolutely is open. I'm trying to pick a goal and work towards it and see where that takes me. But I know I'm pretty early on in my career. I don't know when that changed, but I guess at some point you could do a full-term semester.
I myself don't know exactly when that changed, when the academic program became quite what it is. But what I can tell you with respect to your second question is that one of the great things about DLS is that it allows students to actually engage in and have a better sense of what the practice of law looks like in a particular area. And in some cases that may affirm a student's choice. And in other cases, it may make them think twice about being that criminal defense lawyer or be that family lawyer. And they get a sense early on as opposed to sort of later articling or in the first few years of practice. Not seeing any of, oh, yeah, please go ahead.
Actually, Osgood and Markdale community.
But I don't think it was.
So in addition to other opportunities for other aspects of work that you might find in a community, like public legal education and educational reform.
That's a great question. So really the approach that we take at Downtown Legal Services is sort of firmly rooted in this tradition of community lawyering. So all of our divisions engage in public legal education. We have connections with many frontline service organizations that invite us quite often to provide just that type of public legal education. We also engage in various law reform initiatives. So as Dean Bonet said, our clinic has been involved in systemic litigation. We were actually just recently at the Supreme Court of Canada on a constitutional challenge to the Safe Third Country Agreement. We've also provided submissions to various consultative forums. So if there are government consultations on various legislative reforms, we try and prepare and sort of submit briefs on that particular topic if it's sort of relevant and tied to the issues that are facing the client community. Yeah, so we do a broad range of not just individual case representation.
I say just one little thing.
Sure.
I remember you mentioned injustice of not having access to justice. Yeah, so this is a very social system where there are opportunities for everyone, where there are programs where the taxpayer supports a lot of programs, right? I come from a country where you survive. If you can't, I'm sorry. So at that time, when I was looking for help because I was not going to be able to pay a lawyer or my dad, I didn't feel like it was an injustice. I felt like, okay, Rossana, I mean, you and your dad don't have enough money. It's not anybody's fault. You can't access a lawyer in the same way you can't access a trip to, I don't know, to a cruise in the Mediterranean. So that's the way we see it. I don't know the other immigrants, but that's the way I saw it. That's why I didn't even think of having anything for free. This friend Canadian told me, and I had been 4 years here and I didn't know. So probably the way you asked what can be improved, the way it's promoted. I was 4 years here. I'm an educated person. I was working already, but I didn't know there were legal clinics, and I didn't know we would have, or my dad was low income. Me too. We would have access. You know.
Certainly, Rosanna. No, I take your point. And this is something we hear from a lot of our clients, that they didn't know we existed until they found out through some, circuitous means usually. So yeah, it's a great point. I think I'm just looking at the time, and we're at the point where we need to conclude this evening's discussion. I would like to thank our panelists for their enthusiastic participation this evening. And I'd like to give a special thank you to our alumni for supporting Downtown Legal Services. I am incredibly grateful to more than 20 new donors that chose to celebrate our anniversary with a special gift this year. I'm also thrilled to announce new funding support from our friends at Baker McKenzie, which will allow us to expand our summer fellowships by 1 next year, helping us serve more of our wonderful clients and providing a great learning opportunity for our U of T law students in 2023. We are incredibly grateful. I'd like to give a sincere and heartfelt shout out to DLS alumni and Baker McKenzie associates Jennifer Bernardo, Bonnie Sui, and Haran Viswanathan for championing this fellowship. I would note, As you heard, Jennifer was the first DLS caseworker to assist Luis. In a thank you letter to DLS, Luis emphasizes Jennifer did a wonderful job. The letter predicted that Jen and all the other caseworkers on the file would go on to be, and I quote, brilliant lawyers in any area of specialization they choose. He was right. To all our donors, your generosity ensures DLS can continue to provide exceptional legal service to nearly 2,000 vulnerable individuals in our community each year, while providing clinical legal education to U of T law students that help them become brilliant lawyers. Thank you. It's now my pleasure to welcome Melissa Kennedy, President of the Law Alumni Association, to deliver a toast and to get the party started. Melissa is an alumna of the class of 1987, and she's the Executive Vice President, Chief Legal Officer, and Public Affairs at Sun Life. Over the years, Melissa has kept engaged with the law school as a campaign co-chair for Excellence Without Barriers, which raised $53 million for student support. Melissa has also served as an adjunct faculty member, a mentor, and like many of you, has spoken at numerous career and leadership panels. A passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion, Melissa is a founding member of Legal Leaders for Diversity, a group of Canadian General Counsel who promote diversity and inclusiveness in the legal community. In 2017, Melissa received the Faculty of Law's Distinguished Alumni. Welcome, Melissa, and congratulations on celebrating your 35th reunion.
Thank you to Prasanna and Rossana and Nina for the great discussion that we had today about DLS. It really is a crown jewel in the law school, and it demonstrates our commitment to providing access to justice for some of the most vulnerable members of our community. And to the alumni who so generously supported DLS today and throughout the years, you have everyone's deepest appreciation, so thank you. Before we head over to Hart House for our class dinners, I understand over 200 are attending tonight, so that's wonderful. I'd like to raise at least a virtual toast to all of us from the years ending in 2 and 7. I just do reminisce a bit. I've attended every reunion at the law school except the one that the year I got married. And I remember our first one, 5-year reunion. It was potluck, because I think we were 2 poor. And we ended up scrambling to get television that night because we ended up watching TV because that was the night the Blue Jays won the World Series. So not sure that's going to happen tonight, but I also remember talking to an alumni who was at their 20 years. And in my 5 years as a baby lawyer, I remember thinking, wow, 20 years. That's a lot of miles under the skis. Well, at 35, I put on a few myself. So I'm squarely in that camp. So it'd be your 5-year reunion, your 70-year reunion. I hope you look back on your time at the law school with good memories. I know I do, from our professors who challenge us, to the outside activities that help shape our passions, and to most of all, the lifelong friendships that bind us today. Thank you to all of those who are celebrating tonight, including the class ambassadors and organizers. As I said, there's 200 attending tonight. There's a lot of work goes into these dinners. So thank you to all of you. I sincerely hope we all continue to stay connected. There's a lot of enthusiasm and engagement and activity at the law school. And I encourage you to participate and give and support it in however you choose to do so. So here's raising a toast to all of us. Here's to us. And thank you and have a wonderful evening tonight.